All right, we got our quorum.
Uh, okay. Parker's here. I don't see.
Yep.
Present.
Oh, excellent. All right. 7:09. Let's get started. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this meeting will be conducted via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body, as well as members of the public, may access this meeting via virtual means. Participants may access this meeting through the remote meeting link as posted on the meeting agenda and through the town's online calendar. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by raising their hands or otherwise signaling their intents to speak and be recognized by the chair. This meeting will be recorded. Please take care to mute your microphones unless you have been recognized by the chair. We will now confirm attendance of members. Please respond with present if you are on this call. Members of the planning board. So Rob Benson is not here, correct? Elise Mielowski? Lucia Lopez?
Present.
Michael King?
Present.
Parker Happ?
Present.
Vigasith Prati is also not here, I believe. Amna Dewan? Also not present. Peter Mimo?
Here.
And Matthew Ronca, myself, is present. Staff, John Gelsich?
Present.
And Lori St. John?
Present.
Thank you. All right, let me get the other window into the screen and start with administrative items. I think everything on the agenda is here today. Nothing's been continued, so we are picking up with appointing a zoning advisory committee representative from the planning board. Any members of the planning board have a reconsideration from last week and realize this is something that you are super excited about? Okay. And Vic isn't here right now, who was kind of on the fence last week. John, Zach is meeting next week, right? Are they back?
No, we're trying to find a meeting date for the end of August or sometime in September.
Okay.
We can push this to another meeting if we want to wait for a full board.
Yeah, let's, unless anybody has objections to that, I think that's going to make sense just to make sure more people have an option here. Amna, you weren't interested yet in this position, right? In the Zach rep? Just
Oh,
before you
no, I
decided to
think I'm
postpone.
already doing open space, so I think
Okay.
I'm full.
Sounds good. All right. We'll push this to the 18th is the next one, right? Hopefully that gives us time to get somebody onto the board before the committee before there's a meeting there. All right. So moving on to 1.2, Chamberlain traffic mitigation discussion. John, do you want to give background on this?
Sure. So I've been talking with Carrie Reed, the director of Parks and Director of Public Works. And some of you on the board probably weren't even here for this, but as part of the Chamberlain Wayland subdivision, we were given $10,000 to be used for traffic mitigation. And we met with an engineer, we met with Beta through the board, and the board basically decided what we'd probably be able to do is a speed table. That's what you'd be able to pay for $10,000. That's the most appropriate use in that area. So DPW is looking to do that. But the cost for a speed bump, not even a speed table, a speed bump is $14,190. So this is more than what the board had basically provided. So we're looking to figure out what we want to do as a board. Do you want DPW to pay that extra $4,000, put in the speed bump over by near where the center trail crosses, I believe it was? Do we want to look into other options? Do we kind of want to say, never mind, don't do that. Let's hold off and see if there's something else in the future we can look at. It's just, we've gotten to a point where DPW is like, do we do it or not? We don't have enough money given what you gave us. So we're just looking for some guidance. So I'm passing it along to you. We can think about it until next meeting. They kind of want to repave Chamberlain like now. So that's why they asked us to talk about it now. Because it's going to save money doing it now and doing it while they pave the rest of Chamberlain versus coming back in later and doing it later. So I put that to you all and see what you want to do.
Is the idea of the speed bump or the speed table there basically to protect people that are walking through the trail, or do we think people are just going too fast there? Or have we looked at it since the development was complete?
We have not. Development's not technically complete yet. They still haven't done the final paving, but the most of the houses I think are now occupied. It was really a mix of people driving fast on the to-be newly paved road. It's kind of a straightaway. People in the area there's no sidewalk, so people were worried about safety of pedestrians. We didn't do a traffic study or anything like that. The developer gave $10,000 as part of the decision, and the board was looking to use it. But road construction's expensive, and so now you're seeing a speed bump isn't even $10,000. So not much we can do in the way of traffic mitigation for $10,000.
If we were to request that DPW build, well, either a speed bump with the extra 4K or whatever we're missing, or the speed table, where would that funding come out of? Just the DPW working budget?
Yeah, we'd have to find out where it would come from.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Amna.
So to the chair, sorry, learning the formalities. Does it have to be a speed bump if we're worried about speeding? Because there are some studies that show that, the signs that flash your speed are actually more effective at slowing people down. If that's the purpose of it, do we know what the cost differential in that might be?
No, we looked into all this. It seemed like based off of the engineer's response, the speed table would be the cheapest, the thing that would fit under the 10,000, but we didn't really look into it a ton. And
I mean,
we talked about those. Yeah, we talked about signage, we talked about all that stuff, but it kind of came down to the residents wanted something. Speed table would have been able to be built at that time under $10,000, but we can look at it again and have somebody come in again. It's just, I doubt anything's going to be cheaper.
Okay.
Any other comments from the board?
Through the chair. So John, if we did do the extra 4,000, would we have to get it appropriated from town meeting, or?
I'd have to see. I don't know where it would come from.
Gotcha. Okay.
It may just come from the DPW's road paving budget, but then that takes away from somewhere else. So
does DPW have any comments on this, other than the fact that we've got the money and this was okay?
No, they kind of deferred solely to the planning board.
And the residents are looking for something there because there's concern people are going too fast, but they're not.
That was the concern before. I would assume they're still interested in having some type of mitigation. I don't know if the situation has changed. I don't know how it's different than it was when we talked about it last time.
Okay.
I mean, that was probably a year or two ago.
So it sounds like there was some suggestion from the boards that if there's something that's cheaper and potentially more effective, that might be an option. But it sounds like we don't really have numbers and we don't even know where the money would come from. So it's hard for the board to make a decision at this point. Is that kind of where everybody is on this short discussion so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that something to go with, John? If we can.
So is the board recommending to not put the speed bump in?
If I just think if we're looking for something effective, and we don't know what the cost differential is, there is data in trauma literature that shows that signage, like the electronic signs that show you the speed, actually are more effective at slowing people down than a speed bump. And if that's the concern, then I mean, if the cost differential isn't worth it, then it's not worth it. But it may be worth looking at that as another option if nobody's looked at it. But it's just a thought.
So is the issue that DPW wants to know what they're trying to repave the road right now in the next couple of weeks, and so they need a decision before the 18th, or can they figure out where the money would come from first and what the impacts would be?
Yeah,
it just seems like there's not a lot to make.
So the bottom line of all this is the way that it worked out is, I was not here when the decision was written. I don't know what was discussed as to why they came to this $10,000, but we've got the $10,000. The board tried giving it to DPW. And the director at the time was like, if you give this to me and don't tell me what to do with it, I'm just going to use it for whatever I want. So tell me what you want for it. So the board had this meeting and decided that they would do a speed table. Now we've got a new DPW director saying, look, I know that you wanted this. We've got the paving ready to go. We just don't have enough money. Is this what you want us to do? So last time, and I would guess it's going to be the same, if we defer to the DPW and say, hey, you guys pick what's best, they're going to say, we don't know what's best. You guys need to tell us what to do.
Okay.
So they're looking for like direct, here's what you do with this money kind of guidance, rather than, oh, we would like to look at other options. I mean, if that's the decision, that's the decision. But if you're deferring to the DPW, it's just going to get lost in the ether.
Okay. I don't, if the residents have explicitly voiced concern, I don't want us to just be passing the buck over. If there's something we can make a decision on. Does anybody on the board want to have an opinion one way or the other? I mean, I've got thoughts, but I want to make sure other people.
Through the chair, I would say just based on everything John just said, we should, get the extra 4,000 however we can, and then just approve the speed bump. And then maybe, I guess later on we can try to make them whole at town meeting. So
We don't have an idea of what the speed table itself would cost.
No. So according to DPW director, they are working with Green International, the engineering firm, and based on the roadway, the center trail, trailhead, and the location of the existing driveways, that engineering firm is recommending a speed bump rather than a speed table. So that's what DPW is moving forward with. And then the quote is $12,440, but that does not include signage, markings, and police details, which will also be needed. So then that raises DPW's total estimated cost to $14,190.
Okay. And that would be placed in a similar location near the trailhead. Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of with Michael here, I'd like to know what the cost for the speed table would be, but if their presumption is that it'd be significantly more, and we think this would be sufficient, I would say let's just go with the speed bump. I mean, does anybody have any other thoughts on this? I don't think we need a proper motion here, but I think John needs a clear directive. Okay. Anybody opposed to the idea of the speed bump with the money that we have and the few thousand that we don't have? No? All right, John. Sounds like speed bump is
Okay.
the direction.
Sounds good.
All right. Moving on to minutes. Did anybody have any updates to the minutes that were not recorded in the draft? Okay. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion that the board approve the minutes of the July 21st, 2025 meeting as written.
I'll moved.
Second.
I think it was Michael with the motion, Lucia with the second. Roll call vote. Rob is not here, right? Elise not here. Lucia?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Amna?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes. And
I'm a yes as well. Motion carries. And we are moving on to our first continued public hearing. 8589 West Main Street, minor project site plan. Alicia, I think we haven't figured this out. Is it ILA or is it 2A? The font here is very unclear. And Samara Verna Salon 1993 Trust. John or applicant, could you clarify on what the actual name is so we get it right in the future?
Alicia Isla Solon.
Isla, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. So, John, does it make sense for you to give an update here, or should we just start with the recent documents that were were provided at the end of last week that I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read through.
Yeah, I can just give a quick overview and then pass it to Andrew Steiner to get a little bit more detail. So basically, the crux of the change is that they've reduced the parking from 4 new spaces to 2 new spaces. They've moved them around, changed some layout and stuff like that, but it's basically 2 spaces instead of 4 now.
Okay. And there's been some back and forth over the last few months, but one of these is back on that lumber entrance, and the other is basically expanding into the handicap cutouts right now. Is that right, Andrew? You want to give us a update?
Yeah, I can certainly give an update. Is it all right if I share my screen?
Yeah, John, can you give him access?
All right, is that showing up for everybody?
Yep.
Again, just for the record, my name is Andrew Steiner. I'm with Bowler. I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicant in their minor site plan review application at 8589 West Main. So I guess as you might remember, kind of the initial proposal was to provide 4 additional parking stalls on site. This was achieved by extending into some of the larger landscape islands and restriping some of the additional parking stalls on West Main as compact spaces. And this ultimately resulted in an increase of approximately like 500 square feet. And as part of that, we also anticipated a de minimis increase. It was about 0.1 CFS in peak flow runoff that was leaving the site. So since we originally presented that plan to the board, we've met with town staff and the Conservation Commission and have revised the plan to what's in front of everyone today. So as mentioned, we'd be looking to relocate one of the existing accessible parking stalls on site. It's currently located kind of in where that number 7 is, in front of the Unibank building. As part of the revised submission, that's relocated to the side of the Unibank building within the northeastern corner. And then there's a slight curbing modification as you extend further down towards the Lumber Street entrance. And then again, additional stall at the Lumber Street entrance, which results in about 175 square feet of additional impervious, which is again a significant reduction from what was initially proposed. It's worth noting that the additional runoff that would be associated with this area would be captured and conveyed within the on-site drainage system, which ultimately flows through one of the existing water quality units on site prior to discharge. And also, even though the scope of the project's been reduced, the applicant is still proposing the 6 additional native shrub plantings, which you can kind of see over here by the existing wetland area as part of this submission. And then, as you may remember, we are seeking a waiver from the EV parking requirements that are outlined in the zoning bylaws as part of this approval. And really, given the further reduction in scope of the project, the costs associated with the chargers or, even the conduit would make this project kind of unviable from an economic standpoint and would ultimately result in additional disturbances on site, which we're severely trying to limit as part of this proposal. So again, this is a pretty straightforward application, and really the purpose is to provide flexibility to the existing businesses and their customers. And, obviously we're here for approval, but, again, I know we're down members. I don't know how that would work this evening, but, happy to address any additional questions or comments that the board may have.
So Andrew, which spaces were the ones that were within the buffer zone? Were those just the ones on Main Street, or are the remaining ones still in the buffer zone?
No, so we are out of the buffer zone with these updates. If you can kind of see, I'm going to try to draw on my screen here. The 100-foot buffer zone essentially follows this green line that I'm hoping that's showing up for everybody.
Yeah.
But on the plan. So any improvements within the buffer zone would be kind of, more of like an ongoing maintenance and like restriping efforts.
Okay. And so we've gone down from about 490 square feet of additional impervious area to 175. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And so this is can you tell me how the internal landscaping is calculated?
For the
And the zoning breakdown.
in the zoning, so again, it
Yeah.
accounts for some of these these larger landscape islands on site. There's a handful of them, and then again, I believe it includes some of the buffer zone. Like again, the land adjacent right to the existing parking stalls, but I would have to confirm.
Okay. It's just like when I was trying to do your math, it says a 0.3 increase, but before you had 1.7 increasing. And so the percentages don't really match up. So I'm trying to figure out where the numbers were before.
Got it.
1.7% was 490 square feet.
Yeah, it's 175 square feet. So that would, that's a, de minimis increase to what's on site today, which is again about the 0.3%.
Okay. Before opening it up to the board, would it be helpful to talk? So the site plan was from 2014, according to the packet we've got. And I think Bowler was the engineering firm on that as well. So I don't know if you're best to talk about this or if the applicant himself, the representative, could you kind of talk about like what's changed? I know there's a site plan that was mentioned, or sorry, a traffic survey that was mentioned last time you guys were in front of us, but it's not part of our packet. I don't know if that's something that could be made available. But we kind of talk about what you guys have done up until this point to try to mitigate the traffic concerns.
Hi, I'm Victor Teglassi, representing the owners. I can address that question.
Right, thank you.
So when the site was originally developed by the developer, they didn't really take into account properly the number of employees that would be using the facility. So that left sort of a deficit for customers. And so there was always a problem. We've tried to address that through restriping. We put in signs, 20-minute parking signs for the side that Starbucks is on to try to improve the efficiency of the spaces. So we've done what we could, but what we would like to do is there is a couple of small businesses. I'm not worried about Starbucks. I'm not worried about Unibank, but we are worried about the nail salon and also Verizon. And these are small. Verizon is a franchise. They're small businesses, and they have expressed to us that they need reserved parking for their customers, and so that's what we're doing primarily, is to be able to provide these small businesses, mom and pop stores, basically, with their reserved parking, so they don't have to compete with Unibank and Starbucks.
Okay, so the main issue here are those two smaller businesses.
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned you did restriping before? Because the original plans had 38 spaces, right? But you got 41 right now?
Yeah, we did some restriping and some trying to use the space more efficiently.
Okay. I'll pause there. Is there any questions from the board on any of the changes or any of the proposals?
Just through the chair.
Yep.
Will there be, how would the spaces, how would it be indicated that the spaces are reserved for small businesses? Would there be signage? How many spaces would be reserved for the small businesses? Just the two new ones, or Similar type of amalgamation.
Yeah, so good questions. There would be signs painted on the pavement itself, and there may be a very small sign on the building itself. So those are, for instance, Unibank has very small signs on the side of the building indicating that they have reserved spaces. So I would think they'd be similar, very small signs. So yeah.
Just a quick follow-up. I'm sorry, just a quick follow-up. And is it
Sure.
just the 2 new spaces that will be reserved for the small businesses, or would there be additional spaces reserved for small businesses?
So Verizon already has one reserved space. They had asked for a second reserved space, and we would be able to, if we get 2 spaces, we would be able to give them one of the spaces as an additional reserve spot. And we would have 1 space left for Unibank. We would try to give them a second reserve space, but we would have to talk to Unibank and Starbucks to see if they would object to that. So we can't promise them 2 at this point in time, because we don't have enough additional spaces. If we gotten 3 spaces or 4, we could have provided these reserved spaces without taking away from any of the other businesses.
Thank you.
And so the new spaces won't be designated for one of the businesses, but you're going to redesignate ones that already exist in that.
Yeah. Yes. Correct.
Lucia, I'm going to get through the board before opening up to public. Jeff. Lucia.
So I know the DPW director commented on the original proposal. Have we gotten any updated comment from her regarding these 2 spaces versus 4?
Andrew?
Victor? Andrew?
I mean, I haven't seen anything. We did meet with the DPW director after our initial meeting, and again, I don't want to speak for her directly, but again, I believe that her objections came from that we were reporting an increase in stormwater runoff as part of that initial submission. But again, I don't know if if John's has seen anything additionally since we've revised the submission package.
John, did Carrie see this since it was submitted?
Yeah, so Carrie met with them and talked with them, and basically her comment was she doesn't support anything that increases the runoff. So that she said that's basically her only comment. She doesn't have to look at future incremental changes because it's that threshold.
Okay. Any other comments on the board before taking some public comments?
I had one other
Lucia?
comment. So in looking at the proposal, I think my biggest concern regarding the changes are the island by Lumber Street, reducing that and adding parking there, because that's right where the entrance is, if I'm not mistaken. So it seems like as people are pulling in and out of that space, that will potentially then push traffic onto Lumber Street. And that's very close to the intersection. So I imagine that could potentially cause traffic issues.
Victor, do you have
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so I happen to be a traffic engineer with decades of experience, and what's happening there is that people are slowing down already to make the right turn from Lumber to the driveway, and then there's another curve, and they're slowing down. So and visibility at that location is good. There's no shrubbery, there's no vegetation there, so there is proper sight distance there, and we're not expecting a problem, but we did look at it.
Any other questions from the board?
To the chair.
Is it on the? Okay.
Yeah, it's on the.
On the?
Sorry. So there's there's an article in one of the news things, and it's just from the Conservation Commission. I'm not sure what the ultimate decision is there, but basically it says, et cetera, et cetera. The commission responded with concerns about the application, noting the additional spaces would tax the already full lot, and recalling the commission's arduous process with the original developer over approving the initial design, at which time the commission stressed that no additional modifications would be permitted. And that was, I don't know when. So it sounds like we've hit threshold with stormwater, with DPW, and it doesn't sound like the Conservation Commission's in favor. It sounds like somebody a while ago had some insight and predicted this would be an issue, and they did their best to mitigate it, and here we are. So, you know, food for thought. It doesn't seem like Concom's in favor either.
We had the meeting with Concom, and they were looking for mitigation from us. It didn't appear to us that they were overwhelmingly against the project. A couple of board members, did express certain opinions, but it wasn't uniform. So I would say they left the door open to the project going forward. That was my impression. And also, we are no longer really under Concom jurisdiction. There's no real work being contemplated within the buffer zone. So that's wanted to make that point.
Is there to the chair? Sorry.
Yeah, Anna.
Is there a way to, not that I don't trust it, but is there a way to verify it? Because this is just from the article. It says the Concom's discussing it further on August 5th, and that's tomorrow.
John, do you have any on that? It seems like they've redesigned the plan to basically move it outside of ComCon jurisdiction.
But
Yeah, I mean, if they moved it out of Concom jurisdiction, the Concom might just be talking about how they moved it out. I don't know what they're talking about. Okay. But that's the question.
Should we
Yeah,
find
if I can add
Andrew,
that in, I guess just some additional context. So again, like, I don't know what conversations have had about development limits. That's not part of any of the approvals that are currently on the site. So I think that's important to distinguish as we're kind of contemplating this. And then again, we're out of the Concom jurisdiction, but we'll be meeting with them tomorrow as well as part of this, so they can review and comment on this revised application. I don't know what that'll be, because again, like you mentioned, we are out of their jurisdiction, but we are still having ongoing conversations with them.
Okay. Last call for anybody on the board to raise a hand before I finally get to Jeff. Parker.
Yeah, I just feel like this is the business owner or landlord trying to do well for their businesses. And at this time, the question is, shall we risk losing additional commercial tax revenue because of, these regulations? And I mean, we've got, we're facing deficits, we're facing a need to bolster our commercial tax revenue. And I think making Hopkinton a place that folks want to invest in starts with, the planning board allowing for things like building more parking for small business. So sorry if it's not environmentally friendly, but I just kind of feel in this sliver of the world, which I live in every morning between 8 to 9 o'clock, getting my own iced black tea lemonade, that it's probably a good idea.
I hear what you're saying, Parker. I also recall a lot of other discussions about water runoff and the impact on areas and the amount we've been trying to do to mitigate it. All right, Jeff, you've been very patient.
Hello. Yeah, through the chair.
Name and address, please.
Of course. Jeff Rowland, 14 Old Farm Road. I'm chair of the Sustainable Green Committee. We're actually sitting here in a work group meeting right now talking about this. So I'm here to essentially object to the potential of waiving the EV parking bylaw. To our knowledge, this is one of the first times this has come up for discussion since the bylaw was passed. Was it 2 years ago now? And this is essentially the perfect parking lot for why this bylaw was passed. It's a retail lot right by the highway where you've got traffic coming and going quite a bit. This is the kind of parking lot where long term you do want to encourage EV charging. So from my understanding of the bylaw, it was written quite flexibly to allow either chargers or just some basic infrastructure such as conduit to be installed in order to meet it with the varying thresholds. I am sensitive to the costs to the applicant, but yeah, our concern here is about that bylaw and not the number of spaces in the lot or anything else there. There's other boards considering those. Yeah, I think I've said my piece there.
Thank you, Jeff. May
Any
I
other
respond?
public comment? Sure, Victor, you can respond.
Okay, so yeah, Jeff, I think your comments are well noted. I appreciate your comments. The regulations do provide for a waiver. So if we take the position of no waivers for any reason, then that clause in the regulations really don't mean anything. And I don't believe that was the intent of the regulation. What we have here, I think, is a classic institutional conflict. And here's how I see it. There is this regulation, and it's supposed to help the environment, but there's also regulations regarding the wetlands, a resource. And so having to put conduits in the ground would have considerable effect on the wetlands resource, and it would require digging trenches in the buffer zone and laying these cables. So they don't, it seems to me like it doesn't necessarily help the environment because of this institutional conflict that I think we have to be aware of. The other point I want to make is that nationally, the average EV parking space is only about 15% occupied. And that's a reality. You can look at it, you can research it. So what you're asking us to do is to give us 2 spaces, and we would lose 4 spaces effectively in the process, because only one of those EV spaces would be, even less than 1 space would be utilized at any one time. So for us, makes no economic sense, and we would pull this project on a dime. We would not go ahead with it. So that's really want to share that with you.
So Victor, you may be misunderstanding the bylaw. There's no requirement that it's reserved exclusively for EV users. In fact, if it's just EV ready, it doesn't even make sense to make that reserved. As somebody who, as was pointed out last meeting that you were here, drives an EV, right? I know there's plenty of places where I can't charge because there's people using spaces when it's a limited resource. It's nice when I can use those, but it's not always available. I also think it's interesting, in the last couple of months since you were first here, my wife drives an electric Volvo, and we've gotten some nice marketing bits from them where they've partnered with Starbucks, and they've actually created an entire connection up from on the West Coast, up from Washington down to Denver, of level 3 chargers. And so it actually seems like one of your retail clients is very much going into electric chargers on premise in a much bigger, as Parker said in the last meeting, way than even our bylaw requires. And so I agree with the Green Committee here, or Jeff, I forget if this is in his personal capacity or as part of the committee, that it makes a lot of sense here. Over the last trip I took with my kids, we picked a coffee shop not unlike Starbucks in Canada because it was within walking distance from an EV charger, and it's only about 30 minutes to charge, fully charge from like 20-80% of car. So even a short snack and coffee easily fits in that window. Andrew.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense where for new developments, I agree with that. But we're in a wetlands buffer zone, and even if we don't have the chargers and put in, we would have to make about 10 spaces, 9 or 10 spaces EV ready according to the regulations. We'd have to dig up the whole parking lot, the whole buffer zone. From an environmental sense, we're in a catch-22. You have the EV mandate, and then we want to minimize the impact on the wetlands and the wetlands buffer. To me, if in this kind of situation, it makes no sense in any way.
So you have a transformer pad right, according to the site plans, right in front of the Starbucks, and according to your line of where the buffer zone is, those spaces in that corner are not in the buffer zone, nor are the ones behind the unit.
We have to have 10 spaces put in, and they would end up being on the buffer zone along. And Starbucks would not want their 10 spaces along their main frontage, that it wouldn't get utilized to a great extent. The national average is actually 15 to 17% on the utilization of spaces. They're great, and they make sense in a new development where you have enough space to do it. But here we're asking for 2 spaces, and we would lose 4 spaces effectively. It makes no sense for us to do this. We'd end up with less effective parking spaces than what we're asking for. And less spaces than we already have.
So I hear your argument about the concerns about the buffer zone, but you keep saying that you're going to lose spaces, and I don't understand that part because that doesn't fit in.
All right, so let me explain that. So right now, if you have these EV spaces, okay, and if they're reserved for EV vehicles for charging, okay, the national average utilization of these spaces is only 15%. So you could put them anywhere, and if you put in, basically 10 spaces, on average, 1.5 spaces will be used. Okay, we're putting in. We'd have to put in, I think, 5 spaces here. The average utilization would be less than 1 vehicle, because you have to have first an EV vehicle, then you have to have an EV vehicle that wants to charge their vehicle. And a lot of the customers at Starbucks, they come in and out. In and out. So they want to get their coffees, pick it up, 5-10 minutes, they're out. So even if they had an EV vehicle, unless they want to sit down and have that coffee for a while, they wouldn't use the chargers. I mean, I'm citing a national average. I'm not making it up. It doesn't make sense.
The only thing I want to mention, though, is that the bylaw doesn't require them to be reserved. I just want to make sure that you understand that part of it, because you keep.
So in other words, any vehicle can use it. They don't have to. They don't have to be used by EVs.
Yep, the signage is up to the property. I mean, even if they're EV ready, right? It doesn't even make sense to reserve it. But even if they're EV installed, it's up to the property how they're charged, how they're run, how they're managed, what the signage is.
Go ahead.
I mean, I think the sensitivity comes from potentially having, again, we're here trying to provide additional parking and having stalls that would be dedicated for EV parking spaces, which I understand that's the bylaw doesn't necessarily mandate, but I think when people would see a charger, they would automatically assume that would be for an EV parking space. However, I guess I'm just looking for some clarity on what the EV ready space would look like in terms of the bylaw. Would just additional, again, providing some conduit into the ground for when that would be ready, would that satisfy the bylaw requirement?
I would have to defer to John on exactly what would be required there, if it has to go back to where the conduit has to connect to and any of that. John, do you remember the details in terms of what would satisfy that?
I'd have to look. The zoning has specific definition as to what EV ready means. I think it's just the conduit is in place. I'd have to look. I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, so I don't think we could answer that in real time here. but I'm
Is
sure.
it just a conduit without the wires in it? Is that what we're talking about? So that wires can be pulled through it?
I believe
I
so.
believe
I'd have to
that's the
look.
case.
Yeah, that's generally the idea, but I'd have to look and see what the actual technical specifications would include.
All right. Andrew, I had called on you earlier. Do you have other points?
So, sorry, that was my. I forgot to lower my hand. Apologies.
Okay, Jeff.
All right, so just wanted to reiterate. I'm speaking on behalf of the Climate Action Work Group of the Sustainable Green Committee, this 5-person work group. So yeah, we're objecting to setting a precedent here of waiving the bylaw for an ideal parking lot. And yeah, to reiterate your points, this does not require chargers to be installed right away. It's about setting the parking lot for a future, anyways, of being EV ready, so that they can install chargers more easily in the future. It doesn't restrict the usage of the spaces for now. And going the EV ready route would reduce the costs for the applicant in the short term. And as for where I saw the buffer line, it seemed like there are plenty of spots within the lot that are outside of that 100-foot buffer. So I don't see a concern there as well. And since we're in the middle of another meeting, I'm going to drop off at this point since I think I've said all my points, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of your meeting. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jeff. Other comments from the public? That's still Jeff's hand there. Any other comments from the public or the board?
Through the chair.
Yeah, Parker.
Coming around to this EV idea, I think we should probably continue this until we hear what ComCon says. I don't know if anybody else disagrees with that.
So I definitely think the meeting needs to be continued given the lack of both time to actually read the documents before this and also get feedback from the public having seen the documents and the size of the board, unless the applicant has an objection to that. I do have one other. So we talked about striping before. This is for Victor, I think. How did you fit the additional spaces in? Like, what was it that happened? What was it? What exactly did you end up managing to do to get like 3 extra spaces in there?
Well, we were very creative. So by moving the handicap spot to the other side of Unibank, and we're only required to have 1 van accessible spot per facility. So we were able to reduce the 8-foot handicap buffer to 5 feet. Okay. And then the sidewalk right now, the crosswalk to Starbucks, that was a separate space that already existed. So we almost had all the space on that other side to add the handicap spot to the other side. And so we're just taking about 2 feet from the landscape island across from Lumber. Okay. And then on the other side of Unibank, we currently have a 9-foot handicap spot and the standard 8-foot buffer hatched area. That's 17 feet. And so we found that there were other spaces there that was more than 9 feet wide. So we were able to find enough space on that side of the nail salon and Verizon to put in 2 spaces to replace the 1 space we're losing on the other side of Unibank. So that's how we found that second space. Okay, and
Andrew,
then
sorry. You can continue. Sorry, I thought you.
No, I was just asking, were you looking for clarity on how the additional spots would look on site proposed, or just the additional ones that are on site today from the record plan?
I was asking about the latter, but I also have questions about the former, about what was being answered. Do you have an answer to the latter question? To my original question?
I believe that there was an additional approval from the board. I don't have an exact date, which some, you know, again, if we're ultimately going to continue, we can provide that additional information. But I believe that there was a subsequent approval which allowed for 2 additional parking stalls from what was initially shown on the revised plans.
Okay. Thank you. That'd be good to have that information when we meet again. As well as the traffic study that you mentioned last time, Victor. If you have that, that would be helpful to understand the utilization.
Yeah, we can give you our video observations. We actually every 15 minutes we looked at Unibank's video cameras, which were intended really for security, but we were able to count the number of available spaces every 15 minutes of the day. And you know, the biggest problem is in the morning, you know, where it gets pretty tough. So we'll provide that to you.
Do you have one thing that seems a little bit odd is moving the handicap spot away from in front of the 2 small businesses that we're most concerned about? It seems like that would impact people that might want to access them more quickly. Is there any consideration?
It's a very small building, and it's not far away. It's only a few feet away when you're thinking about it. It's not a long distance, and I've seen handicap spots even much further away even.
Okay. The other thing that strikes. Sorry, Andrew.
Sorry, it was just to add to that. Again, there's an existing crossing there, which again, there's from a grade perspective, there's existing ramping that's already part there. So again, it's on the corner, but it still provides direct access to the front of those buildings.
Okay. The other thing that strikes me is that I think it's chapter 190-4 of the town bylaws, which uses words from MGL 40, chapter 40, section 21, item 23, actually requires a third ADA spot once you hit 40 parking spaces. So it seems
did that change? Because it used to be when you hit 50, that was the basis of. In fact, that's how
this hasn't changed since 2014, for sure.
Really?
This predates, yeah.
Because
in fact, in 2016, when you brought this to the planning board to remove the ADA at 38, it was mentioned that it wasn't exactly the way you were describing it, but there was a graded slot, and it just didn't get brought up again when you asked for the later spots. So I'm curious how this ever happened.
I'm not sure I understand. Could you repeat that?
When you first brought removing the ADA spot, the third ADA spot in front of the board, the principal planner at the time actually raised that it wasn't exactly the way you were describing it, but since you were still below 40, it wasn't going to impact you. And so it just seems like this kind of got dropped as you added more spots in between.
Okay.
So that I wasn't necessarily aware of, but we can review that further.
Okay. Let's see. Did you have a comment?
I did. My question is regarding the EV utilization in Massachusetts, because I imagine that there's a potential big difference between national utilization of EV spaces and EV space usage in a state that kind of encourages EV more than other states.
I looked at Massachusetts and it wasn't very high, to be honest with you. The utilization of EVs seems to be higher. The utilization of EV seems to be very higher in very warm states and sunny states like Arizona and some of those other states, maybe California. The colder states, the utilization is actually lower than the national average. But I can get that for you, specifically for Massachusetts. We'll have that for you.
Thank you.
To the chair.
Anna?
That 15% average that you're quoting, that's current data, correct? That's not projected future usage and growth.
Correct.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
current. Yes.
Any other comments from board or the public before we continue this to a later meeting? I see no comments. I assume there's no objection to continuing this to a later meeting. The 18th work for you, or do you want a later meeting?
Let's shoot for the 18th for now, and we'll get Concom's comments tomorrow. As you can see, we've reduced the scope of this project considerably. So basically, it's one space through largely more efficient utilization of the pavement, and the other one is actually a new space from construction.
Yeah, I think one of my concerns with that is that it seems like we've added 5 spaces without having a site plan review after some significant back and forth to make everything fit in the initial plan. And so I'm a little concerned that there hasn't been any peer review in the interim time, and we're just kind of adding a little bit at a time. And even just looking at the numbers that I mentioned at the beginning, the 0.3 versus 1.7 and the square footage associated with them, like it just seems like the numbers are all over the place. I'd really like to understand better where the numbers are coming from.
Well, sure.
We can provide you that clarity.
Thank you. John, we have to extend a decision also?
Correct. So I would be looking for the 28th.
For the decision?
The decision deadline.
Okay. In that case, I would entertain a motion from the board to extend, to continue the meeting for 85, scrolling, sorry. 8589 West Main Street minor project site plan. Alicia, sorry, this is Isla? Is that what it was?
Alicia Isla Solan.
Isla, okay. Alicia Isla and Samara Vern Solan, 1993 Trust, to the August 18th meeting and extend the decision deadline to August, you said 28th, right? August 28th.
So moved.
Second.
I think it was a motion from Michael and second from Amna. Is that what it was? All right. In that case, roll call vote. Lucia.
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Amna.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right. We'll see you guys on the 18th. Unless you need more time and we continue it past that. Thank you.
Appreciate the time.
Yep. New public hearing for 3 Claflin Street special permit for off-street parking in the BD district, Marcelo Trolio. I'd entertain a motion to open the aforementioned meeting. Public hearing.
So moved.
Lucia.
Second.
Motion from Lucia, second from Peter. Roll call vote. Lucia.
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Amna.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right. Sean, you want to give us a background on this?
So I can defer to the applicant after a quick intro, but this is going to be similar in nature to 18 Cedar Street. It is a multifamily development in the downtown business district. For those of you who remember, this special permit is just to allow for parking in between the principal building and the roadway. That's a requirement in the downtown business district. This is not a special permit for the use. That is something that the Board of Appeals, the Zoning Board of Appeals, has jurisdiction over. So the discussion here for the planning board is whether the parking between the building or buildings, however you want to classify it, proposed, is viable for a special permit, not for the use of the multifamily. The proposal that they're having is 4 units. There's currently 1 on the site. They're townhome style units, and the driveways are going to extend from a garage to the street. So the parking would essentially be on the driveway of these units. And those driveways are in between the building and the street, and therefore this special permit is required.
Thank you. Does the applicant want to speak or present? Craig?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. My name is Craig Hartwell, and I'm joined tonight by Marcello Trolio, who's the owner of 3 Claflin Street. As John mentioned, we're seeking a special permit pursuant to section 2010-20.4A to allow for off-street parking between the principal building and the street. Specifically, we're looking to locate 7 parking spaces between the proposed addition and Claflin Street to supplement the 3 garage spaces we're also proposing for the project. In the last few months, we've met with town staff, including getting approval from the Historical Commission, and have taken their feedback to include additional landscaping along the boundary with 5 Claflin Street as well. We hope you'll agree that the benefits of the additional on-site parking will, provide a benefit to the neighborhood by reducing the amount of street parking, and we'll open any questions or comments you have.
Thank you. Any, Sean, do you have the map to put up on to share, just to have it up there to talk about? Any comments from the board so far? We had a similar project where basically just to be able to get any parking, right, we had to have a special permit. So it's the same idea. Lucia.
I think what I found to be a notable difference is I don't remember that project, 18 Cedar Street, having any comment regarding a very large curb cut from the DPW director. And I saw that in the materials for this. And so I just want to make sure that we consider that concern, as well as I know that the fire department provided an email in support of the off-street parking, but they also said that we potentially would want to consider discussing adding no parking signs because of the narrowness of the street at this point.
Any comment on the applicant side about whether we could reduce the curb cut and still keep accessibility in there?
So I don't believe we can reduce the curb cut, but to address that concern, if you were to look at, I could share my screen and show you the Google Earth image. You can see on the plans though where the poles actually are located on the street. Whether the curb cut was 10 feet or 100 feet, there's no doubt where the property line is, because the poles are between the property line and the street. So the DPW truck that was plowing Claflin Street would literally have to take a right to get into the driveway and then take a left to get back on the Claflin Street in order to go across, because of the way the poles are. There's a pole right at the boundary of 3 and 5, and there's a pole at the boundary of 1 and 3.
Other comments from the board so far? All right, open up to the public for any comments from the public. Ms. Mitchell, Pam Mitchell.
Hi, on the picture that's showing right now, there's only 6 parking spots depicted. Just curious, that's my first question. And
Great. It looks like you pulled up the old plan set from 1/1/25. We're actually using a newer plan set that has all 7 spots on it.
Do we have the newer?
I'm happy to share my screen. Oh, there you go.
Sorry, and Ms. Mitchell, do you have other comment?
I'm a little unsure what, because like you said, this is just about the parking, so I'm not really sure. But I do want to say that 3 Claflin is a smaller lot. It's called non-conforming because it's smaller for a single dwelling. It's on a street with all single dwellings. And I'm confused why we would put 4 units on a non-conforming lot that's so small. And as you can see, my house is I live on 5 Claflin. It's very close to the line. It was built, before there were setbacks. And so that number 7 would be about 7 or 8 feet from my living room window. That's 7. Be a little bit close. And, I'm reading all of the things on the off-street parking, and they keep talking about not being detrimental. And actually on 210-20.4, it also talks about enhancing the downtown streetscape. And I don't really see either, it being an enhancement to have a whole line of cars. And then also, I'm concerned about my property values. So not in favor.
Okay. So we can only talk about we're only covering the parking lot, not the overall project. So we can't speak to that part. And you did mention your address, just for the record, it was 5 Clavin.
Yes,
right?
5 Clavin. But on the off-street parking, it talks about the surrounding
The purpose for it.
Stuff like that.
Yep. Nope. And I appreciate the comments. Just in terms of the four units, we're not going to be able to talk.
Okay.
Make a decision on that part. Ms. Brophy, I think you were next.
Sure. So Sarah Brophy, 9 Claflin Street. I'm on the other side of our 2 houses down from this. I'd love to talk about the order of the numbers that we're looking at here. You're talking about 7 car spaces. You're talking about 3 garages. That at max is 10 cars on an already short street that has 5 houses along the side. We've already agreed that it is a narrow street at best. And now you talk about 10 cars, you talk about 8 trash bins. I'm curious where snow removal is going to go, thinking about the logistics of things. There's no yard to put anything into. So are they going to put snow in the street? Or are they going to put snow in a neighbor's yard? There's some the pure logistics of what's happening here beyond the fact that this is not this is detrimental to the neighborhood. We don't have a facade on this street that is all house and all cars in front of it. There's literally there's no greenery in front of this. Maybe walking down and driving down a massive facility, and then plus looking at all these cars in front of the house. I think that there's some other concerns that I have just environmentally. And you talk about runoff. This is all hardscape. So where does the water go? The water is going to go into neighbors' yards, backyards, all of those components. And I think that there's a significant impact to the neighborhood that we have going on here that needs to be considered that I don't see being addressed. Are we doing an environmental analysis? Are we doing a traffic impact analysis? Because again, this is a very short street that already has traffic issues. I'm at the end of this street. So my driveway gets used as a turnaround. My front lawn gets used as a turnaround, depending on how big the vehicle is that can or cannot get down the street. And again, now we're talking about dropping at a minimum 10 cars, because again, you've got driveways, you've got garages. Where do the guests park? You've got people that park here for guests. They're going to have to park in front of 5, in front of 7, in front of 9, or in the turnaround. Where logistically this is not an ideal situation for this street, and it actually is completely disruptive to the environment that we have here in our neighborhood here.
Thank you for the comment. There was a couple things raised in there. Trash and refuse. I think that's for a 4-unit property that needs to be private, right? So there's that is that would be a different schedule, most likely.
I agree with you that it's private, but I think you need to consider the fact that where are all those 8 bins going to go per house? Again, you don't have. They're going to go in the garage, or they're going to go in the street for trash pickup. And I think we can all agree that in any house or in any street, you always see the bins kind of lingering around that day of. And as soon as this is a narrow street, as soon as I've got one bin, I've got to get out of my car, pull that bin back in somewhere. We're logistically, this just does not make sense on paper when you think about dropping that many vehicles and potential vehicles in this space.
Mr. Hartwell, do you know what the plan would be for the refuse pickup?
I believe
Would it
we'd
be
have,
individual
to do,
bins,
we
or
would have to do private pickup for its 4 units, and we would just include that as part of the fee.
and would they be dumping into like a common bin that would just be picked up, or would they be individual waste bins at the street?
We can address that at the next meeting when we go through that with the zoning board, but we're happy to come up with the best possible solution for the town.
Well, I'd have to say that you have no space left if you wanted to do a dumpster. And then the dumpster then also brings its own issues in terms of noise and smell and sound. But you've maxed out the entire frontage of that property at 3. You have no space for greenery. You have no space for anything. Not to mention that the first unit is the first unit has 1 spot, and you've got a 2-bedroom unit, and they've only got 1 dedicated spot if all the other spots are for the units 2, 3, and 4. So I guess I'm looking at the order of the numbers, and the math doesn't math.
All right. Thank you. We'll move on to Mr. Mitchell. Pointing.
Thank you very much. Bernie Mitchell, 5 Claflin Street. Sorry, I went after Sarah. She hit most of my points. Mainly, I would like to see the email from the fire department who said they were in favor of it. I thought they had a major problem with the fact that it was 9.5 feet or 9 and X feet they needed to get a truck down, and it wasn't really passing that. If you simply add in what happens at wintertime, you lose anyways 1.5 feet on each side to a snowbank, and that's being conservative. I think you have a real problem at those telephone posts, which have been noted. So I'd like to see the email from the fire department and then overlay that in what happens in wintertime. Can they get an emergency vehicle down there? I would just say that Sarah also hit everything that I was going to hit on, but I would also point out that the water on the other side of the road is very wet in the spring. Puddles stand there. That water runs downhill, so into 3 Claflin. And if we're going to put on permeable surfaces, plus you think about the buildings behind it, anybody downstream that is on Walcott is going to have a whole new water problem. Thank you.
The fire department's comment, which is in the Google Drive link to from the meeting information on the town website, mentioned that it was in support of providing additional off-street parking, basically to get people off of the street was the main context there. Ms. Devlin?
Thanks so much. Alyssa Hopkins, 1 Claflin Street, so on the other side of this proposal. I appreciate the board members' time today and your careful consideration of this special permit request. So I'm going to focus on the concerns that my neighbors have already shared related specifically to the 2 requirements that this request must meet, and the detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood. I think my neighbors have touched upon of most of the pieces. I think it's important to note that this is basically almost like a 1 road lane. So 2 cars cannot safely pass each other on this road. That's how narrow it is. So when I see my neighbors come, when they see me come, we have to pull to the side or not even enter the street. And we have to wait for them to come out, and then we'll go in. So that's how narrow this street is for sedans and normal passenger vehicles. So once you start adding sanitation, snow removal, right, you get the sense then it's actually truly a 1 lane, right? Sanitation actually reverses down our road because, as Sarah pointed out, there's nowhere to turn around. There's literally nowhere to turn around. So these parking spaces, you then have what amounts to 10 cars that are pulling in and out of a very small narrow road amongst, the already existing volume on this road. So I do think that creates unsafe conditions for the residents, quite frankly, in addition to concerns around safety vehicles, emergency vehicles that would have to travel up and down this road to serve the increased residents that would leave. And again, acknowledging that the actual multifamily piece and how that doesn't fit into the zoning bylaws based upon the size of this lot is a separate consideration. I think I would flag more the concerns around creating more impervious space as well. Being at the end of the road, there is one drain, and it's Walcott and Claflin. So when it rains, and we have had torrential downpours almost every summer, but even if we're thinking about this spring, the water just gushes down this street. There's nowhere for the water to go. And so all of the impervious land between Main Street and Claflin Street, the water just runs down and then runs down our road. And so increasing the amount of impervious surfaces really does concern me, because that water has nowhere to go. And as my neighbor mentioned, puddles fill up in the road, but in fact, it's going to seep into basements. It's going to seep into the basements of neighbors down the lane. And when I read this request, the applicant did not sufficiently address the requirements, quite frankly. They didn't speak to whether or not it was detrimental to the neighborhood, quite frankly, and didn't really gave a nod to the drainage at the bottom of the property, which again then is just going to go into our neighbors' yards at the end, right? There's no plan for real authentic drainage to handle the volume of water that travels from Main Street down to Claflin Street. That's quite honestly a problem for the residents who currently live here. I think I hit on every possible permutation. I think I would note there is, of course, no on-street parking on this road. So I do agree that particularly, I think we can all agree, downtown needs more off-street parking. There's very little on-street parking on Walcott Street, and now most of that is being taken up by the big fans of Blue Square Pizza, right? So there truly is just not a lot of parking. There's a lot of double parking right on Main Street onto Walcott Street. So it's already very, very congested. It does sound like this will create substantially more congestion in an area where it's just not currently being mitigated. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I hear the comments about not a lot of space, the concerns about waste, pick up the snow, turning around, bypassing. I want to make sure that we're not rehashing concerns. This meeting will obviously be continued to a later time as well, in case anybody forgets anything. Ms. Brophy, did you have anything else to touch on?
I do. One thing I wanted to add to, or two things I wanted to add, is part of the bylaws also say about enhancing the downtown streetscape. Looking at looking at a facade and cars and parking spaces doesn't really enhance our neighborhood is one thing. The other thing, and I think even more importantly than everything else, is that there's this neighborhood that we've got kids, we've got some elderly folks in this neighborhood, we've got people who walk up and down the street, with their dogs, their babies. And we're significantly impacting that by adding in all these additional cars, and it's going to be a bit of a scare for those folks. So I just want to address that as well too.
Anybody who hasn't spoken yet have anything they want to add before I return back to the board for discussion? Okay. Comments from people on the board, having heard a lot of the feedback. Any thoughts?
Can you just restate what's under consideration for us again, just for the record?
So they're looking for, the applicant's applying for a special permit for the parking lot. So it's the 7-spot parking lot, 100-foot curb cut. Is that the right description?
No. It's not a 100-foot curb cut. It's not a parking lot. It's a 67-foot curb cut, which is only about 20 feet more than what is there right now, which they haven't mentioned that there's already parking there on site for 5 cars, essentially. And the only relief we're asking for is to have parking between the building and the street. Otherwise, that, where it's in the downtown business district, they don't want anything in front of the businesses that are, along Main Street. Where this is off Main Street, we're simply trying to accommodate the bylaws to make everything work.
Thank you. I appreciate your correction. I'm not sure where I got 100 from, but I was looking at the wrong screen memory. So Parker, that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Other comments, questions from the board, thoughts? Yes, Lucia.
Peter can go. He had his hand up.
Yeah, I haven't. I didn't put my
hand.
electronic hand up. I apologize for that. Just to be clear, the applicant is looking for a waiver from any environmental analysis, any traffic impact analysis. They want us to waive or any sort of requirements along those lines as well. Is that what we're being asked to vote on as well?
Yes, an environmental analysis, traffic impact analysis, and the peer review fee.
And
having to
can I get an explanation as to why that would be?
What's the basis for the request for the waiver, Mr. Hartwell?
Because we're simply asking for the parking relief. We're not seeking full approval from this board.
John, any?
Through the chair, I thought I had read in the application materials that at least the cover letter, that the applicant was looking for a waiver from other applicable. Well, I thought I had read that did I not read that in the application cover letter that the applicant was looking
that is correct. There was a joint cover letter between the planning board and the zoning board.
Okay.
We felt that seeking relief for parking between the building and the street didn't rise to the level of needing a full environmental analysis or traffic assessment, where all the parking is going to be off-site or off the street. There's no additional cars going to be on the street other than what are into these 3 additional units. So it's really only 3 units we're adding to the property.
John,
we're having 10 spaces total, which should be more than enough for 4 total units, to allow for, not having additional on-street parking.
John, is the special permit covering site plan as well, or just the location? Like it's a large parking lot. Like, are we taking into consideration runoff and other concerns?
No, so it's really you're in the downtown business on residential districts. You're not, or on residential uses, you're not allowed to have parking between the building and the road. And the intent of that, my understanding would be, in downtown areas, you don't want to have people walking next to parking. You want to have people going up against the facades of buildings and have buildings close to the street, and therefore you might not be able to have parking in between the primary building and the roadway. So what this special permit is for is really just to allow for parking to be located between the principal building and the roadway. It's not for the number of spaces. It's not for the use as a multifamily. It's not for the curb cut. It's not for the traffic that is going to be generated. It's really just to allow for parking to be located between the principal building and the roadway. The use, the traffic implications of the use, all that is really the jurisdiction of the Board of Appeals. And they have to get a special permit to allow for multifamily uses within the BD district that don't have a ground floor retail component, because that would be a by right use. But pure multifamily in the downtown business district requires a special permit from the Board of Appeals. They also now, I mean, if they had all the if they put the building up along the street and then had a parking lot in the back, so you would just basically drive behind the building and then park behind the building, they wouldn't need a special permit from the planning board. They just need a special permit from the planning board because they're proposing to park in the driveways, which will be located between the building and the road.
And are those driveways fully built right now, or is that something that's going for the Board of Appeals?
So I believe they're not, the units aren't built. So the driveways wouldn't be built. There's probably some semblance of a driveway at some point in that, but I doubt it's.
And so would that be a project that comes back before us after it gets approved by the Board of Appeals, or is the Board of Appeals the stop?
No, so residential uses are exempt from site plan review.
Okay.
Pursuant to our bylaws. So this would not come back. This would be the only jurisdiction the planning board would have over this project.
Okay. Lucia?
So I think this kind of covers my question. If the question that we are being asked to answer is, can you put parking in front of the building? I think we can all agree most of our houses have driveways that people park on that are between our homes and the street, right? So that's essentially what they're asking to do here. The issues that the residents raise are significant, and I guess my hope is that they are addressed somehow. And if they're not addressed in our process, then are they going to be addressed by the Zoning Board of Appeals? Because I agree, where's the snow going to go? Space number 7 that's closer to the lot line than the building is to the lot line is a concern. I would say get rid of space number 7 so that you're not right up against the neighbor's window, the neighbor's house. Stormwater, having all of that parking, when's that going to be addressed? Because you do see that I think we could see the lines of how steep it is down there. And not having done a site walk, I can't say for sure, but I feel like all of those are legitimate concerns that need to be addressed. And I understand that the question before us is, can you put parking in front of the building? But all those concerns, I think, are legitimate and shouldn't be ignored.
So I was presuming that we would do a sidewalk, which is why I said this is likely going to be continued. Is that generally the feeling of the board, is that we should probably take a look at the street in person and where everything lies? Is there anybody doesn't feel they need to do that?
I agree.
Okay.
Sidewalk.
So normally the sidewalks have been Saturday mornings. Is that still the best time for people on the board? We didn't have good turnout at the last one. All right, I'm seeing people shaking their head yes. Soccer season is over.
Baseball too.
What's that?
Said baseball too.
Baseball too. Does that work for the applicant? Saturday mornings?
Yeah.
In general? Okay.
We'll make it
For the board, first of all, what's a good time range? This Saturday, I've got something I kind of mid morning, so I'd have to be early. Whereas the 16th? 16th, I've got a lot more space. Do either of those weekends work better for other people?
I can do either. I just prefer as close to the crack of dawn as possible.
Likewise.
Likewise, I like earlier too. I don't know where the applicant's coming from. Mr. Hartwell, would you be the one on site or Mr. Marcel?
Yeah.
Does 8 a.m. on the 8th work for everybody, or is that too early?
The 9th?
Is the 8th?
9th, 8th a Friday.
9th. Sorry, my calendar starts on a Sunday here. It throws me off. Yeah, on the 9th, yes. Next Saturday.
Is it possible?
Saturday.
I'm on vacation. Is it possible we could do it the following Saturday, or is that
that's fine with me. I'm even more open the following Saturday. So is everybody else good on the following Saturday? Is 8 a.m. still good, or should we move it back a little bit later to 9?
I think 9 sounds a lot better than 8.
I would agree with that.
Okay, 9 o'clock sound good to everyone on the 16th?
I will respectively be missing. I have to officiate a wedding, but don't let that confuse everybody.
Priorities, man. All right. Have the wedding on site. Cool. All right. So it sounds like that's the better date though, is the 16th at 9 a.m. We'll do that then.
I think that where we have the zoning board hearing next week, would the planning board have any objection if they want to do a sidewalk as well for scheduling at the same time?
So sidewalks are public. Everybody is allowed to be there. I have no objection to having multiple boards there at once. The only things to be discussed there are points of fact, like such as.
I'm aware. I'm on my own zoning board, so.
Yeah, it's more for any of the audience that might want to show up. But the abutters and anybody else in the public definitely welcome to show up. I know in the past sometimes people weren't aware of that, but yeah, please show up and feel free to walk around, point out the concerns that you have. So 9 a.m. on the 16th. And should we just park on the very small street? Is that the best place?
No, you can park where the parking is now. So there's 5 of you can probably fit there now.
Okay. At the risk of opening this up to more public comment right now, is the public comment brief? I see 2 hands raised. I want to make sure we're not introducing new things. Ms. Brophy, do you want to?
Yeah, brief. I just want to say respectfully, thank you for your time listening to all of this. You will get to see firsthand when the entire board comes down here to see what parking's like and where you can and can't park. So I'm kind of excited about that for you guys to see that firsthand. But I also just want to say one thing in respectfully to Lucia's point about parking and having that, be by your house. All parking in residential areas, I always see is to the side and adjacent to the house, not in front of the house. And so I think that's just the one small distinction I'd like to make sure is noted that, again, all of our housing or all of our parking is to the side. That's all. But again, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to us.
All right. Thank you. And so we will continue this to the 18th as well. Does that sound reasonable to the applicant?
Yes, sir.
John, is there anything else to continue here or to extend?
Not that I know of.
Okay. In that case, I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for 3 Claflin Street special permit for off-street parking in the BD district, Marcelo Trolio, to the August 18th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion made by Michael King, second by Parker Happ, and roll call vote. Lucia.
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Amna.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
And myself is yes. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the public attending the meeting and voicing your concerns. We'll probably see a number of you on the 16th at 9 a.m. And obviously you're welcome back when the public hearing on the 18th. Thank you. And that is the last thing on the agenda, if I recall. So does anybody have anything, any of the members of the board have anything to raise that is apropos of the meeting? Or I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, that was Michael and Parker with the second. Roll call vote. Lucia.
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Amna.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
And I am a yes. At 8:42, the motion carries. Thank you, everybody. It's a little bit longer than last week or last meeting.
Bye, everybody.